Welcome back to Against the Cage. My name is Jake Aryeh. I'm here with my esteemed colleague, Erich Richter. Erich, how we doing?
All right, not too bad. A little pay-per-view coming off of the heels of a pay-per-view, and we got a nice little 13 fight card. Nothing crazy this week, but yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Jake, we got a lot to talk about. Lots has happened.
Yes, yes, we do. Of course, Alex Pereira lost his light heavyweight title to Magomed Ankalaev, but we'll get to that in a little bit. If you missed that, there might be a reason why, since ESPN had a little bit of a snafu with their pay-per-views being accessed by the public. Erich, you wrote an amazing piece that got a lot of traction, very comprehensive. Could you explain what happened over the weekend and the bigger story around it?
Yeah, so for those of you that aren't using the Russian links to watch the fights, if you were trying to purchase the fight on ESPN Plus, basically you were getting a try again notice on the pay-per-view. Anyway, long story short, it took pretty much the entire main card for fans to be able to watch the fights. Now, that obviously upsets everybody, and that's not good for business. You lost a lot of pay-per-view buys, so think about just to encompass that entire issue. Alex Pereira gets pay-per-view points. Think about how much money he lost by people not purchasing the pay-per-view as a result. So yeah, not a good situation. Fans didn't get their money back either. The ESPN had said that we fixed it by the main card, by the main event. So that's kind of is what it is. It's not a good situation for the UFC. And when I got a call Sunday morning, there was daylight savings and stuff like that. So I was kind of groggy. I woke up 9 o'clock, got a call from somebody, and without diving into too many details on that, basically like the prevailing sentiment is that the UFC is very upset with ESPN. So the UFC has a 7-year deal with ESPN to host their pay-per-views, which expires at the end of the year, and they are currently in their exclusive negotiating window here. So April 15th is when that is up. And this happened, less than a month out from that, or a little bit more than a month out from that. So, not a good situation for the UFC, not a good situation for ESPN, and especially if they want to bring the UFC back. I think we can talk a little bit more about that. But, the sport as a whole, this is not great for people that like to watch on cable TV. This isn't great.
This has kind of happened before. I've heard people like Luke Thomas, complain about I mean, rightly so, not being able to get their buys in. But this has got to be the biggest situation with ESPN Plus. What is the UFC's sort of feeling and sentiment about them? As a potential suitor to keep going within this, looming rights deal with this, context going on.
No, the UFC wants a lot of money, right? They want, from what I was told, 1 billion plus per year to host to show the UFC product on their airwaves. Now, the problem that I got a couple questions, and this wasn't in the article or anything like that, but just something to keep an eye on going forward. I went back and I looked. ESPN has pretty much stopped putting UFC programming on cable TV, whether that be ABC, ESPN2, ESPN. That's kind of stopped. Maybe there's going to be more to that, right? Maybe I'll have a little bit more there. But for now, there isn't any. ESPN has basically stopped putting it on cable. It's been exclusively on ESPN Plus. Why does that suck? Well, for me, I'm a betting guy. I like betting on fights, and I'm a minute or two behind when I'm watching on ESPN Plus rather than like 10 seconds behind on a cable stream. So that's number one. Hate that for me. Number two, I think it's interesting if ESPN isn't putting UFC on their cable broadcast, I feel like that is indicative of where they feel about each other right now. I think that ESPN might be frustrated with UFC. The product, the quality isn't very high. I talk to people who are close to fighters who say pay-per-view numbers are way down, right? Why is that? Well, and this has been the case since ESPN started, but if you look at prior to launching with ESPN versus now, it is a lot harder to purchase the pay-per-view. Why? ESPN, you have to have an ESPN Plus subscription, which is $10 a month just to purchase the pay-per-view. So There's red tape. It's automatically more difficult now. You have to sign up for a subscription, then you also have to make a separate purchase for 80 bucks. So big problems there. The fighters getting less in pay-per-view points. That's almost like that part of their contract is almost becoming pointless because the pay-per-view buys are so much less. Like the UFC gets 300,000 pay-per-view buys as a buy-in from ESPN. There's no way that ESPN is getting 300,000 pay-per-view buys out of every pay-per-view, from what I was told. So this has been a bad marriage in the last couple of years for both parties. UFC's frustrated with the technology that ESPN's not up to speed yet, and the UFC and ESPN is frustrated because they're not getting the pay-per-view buys that they had expected.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wow, bad marriage. So I guess going forward, the biggest questions is, who is the UFC going to go with, and who are the other potential suitors? How do you think, if you could forecast what was going to happen, put your crystal ball hat on, well, what would you think is going to happen going forward?
When I put that article out on Sunday night, I got a call from somebody who's pretty well connected, and he said almost definitely Netflix. Uh,
Wow.
Almost definitely. Surely, I believe was the exact word. So I would venture to guess that the UFC will do anything in their power to go to Netflix. Now, where it gets interesting is Netflix is seemingly unwilling at this point to dive into the pay-per-view model. Mark Shapiro had said that they're willing to be flexible, and that's when it comes to the pay-per-view model, it works for them, is what they said, but they said they're willing to be flexible. Now, what does that mean? That means Netflix, hey, look at us, right? That when he made that comment, that is a direct comment to Netflix. Look at us. We are willing to play ball. Okay. So for me, I think that Netflix, and they're gonna have to be careful too, right? Netflix is gonna pay a ton of money for the UFC. They have to be careful not to piss off their existing user base by upping the price of Netflix from whatever it is now. Is it 30 bucks a month to $50 a month? That's gonna piss off their existing user base. My prediction, this is just a prediction, is that the UFC will sign on with Netflix starting at the beginning of 2026, and that the UFC will have a different package similar to ESPN Plus, but only UFC. Think about it as like UFC Plus for on Netflix, and say
They do have Fight Pass.
Fight Pass is the worst. That is the worst value in sports right now because even the fight library that they have is available on ESPN Plus. You literally get nothing for that.
Of course, of course. But now with the addition, if they did do their pay-per-views on it, then now we're kind of talking.
Well, if they did their pay-per-views on it, then it's like, what's the point of even having Netflix? Right? It's like,
Well,
like, because then you could just host it for, I mean, obviously you get the rights deal with them, like you get more money, but you could just do it all in-house at that point. But, for me, I think that you're looking at a Netflix deal starting in 2026, and that is going to be a UFC plus $25 a month or $40 a month, depending on how greedy the UFC wants to be. But it'll include pay-per-views and all fight nights, and we just run from there.
do you think that so you think that Netflix would cave to the pay-per-view model, perhaps?
No, I don't
Oh,
think that. I think that it'd just be
oh,
a
but you're saying that pay-per-view, quote unquote, like the numbered UFC events, like those, and it'll be one all encapsulating.
fight nights, UFC, the warehouse shows, the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Cool. Because I think that the biggest conversation, obviously, besides the obvious one, is like who are they going to go with? Is it going to be just one, or is it going to be two? So in your mind, you're saying it's pretty unlikely for them to splinter off. They'll want to keep it like pretty contained. Like say for instance, it would be Netflix and say an Amazon Prime. Some people have been like speculating that could be something that could happen.
That was talked about. I do know that that was talked about as well, that they were talking about just having ESPN do the pay-per-views and then the fight nights would be split between Amazon and Netflix. I do no longer believe that that will be the case.
Wow. Okay. Cool. Wow. You guys heard it here first. There we go. Um, I think that's about all I've got in terms of questions for this rights deal. I guess just finishing off, is there anything else you'd like to say about the latest on this situation, kind of on the UFC side?
Keep an eye on what card is on. If there is any cards, all right. So like March Madness and like college basketball has been on the ESPN networks for every Saturday since football ended. Because usually like college football, yeah, like college football always take precedent over UFC, but college basketball taking precedent is a little new. So keep an eye on that. Is there anything that's going to be on ESPN the network or ESPN two? Like keep an eye on that. I'm gonna do some digging and maybe I'll have some more on that in the future, but. Yeah, that keep an eye on that. I think that that'll tell us a lot about where this relationship stands, and I don't think it's very good.
Okay. Wow. Alrighty. So that gets sort of the ESPN Plus situation out of the way. And for those of you who weren't able to watch some of UFC 313 last weekend, we're going to do a little bit of a recap diving deep into it. So I think let's just start off with the main event. Of course, Alex Pereira, like I mentioned before, lost his light heavyweight title to Magomed Ankalaev. This was a really strange fight. If you had said to me and you and plenty of other MMA fans that Magomed Ankalaev would not land a single of his 12 takedowns, stand with Pereira for a good portion of the fight and then win by decision, I think we'd all be pretty shocked. So, Eric, what was going through your head while watching this fight and sort of what were your takeaways from it?
Well, hey, I did put on my tinfoil hat last week, and I even joked. I was like, he probably told the UFC that he wouldn't shoot for a takedown and that he wouldn't lay on top of Pereira for the whole fight. I joked that I kind of hoped that would do that, but you know what? He actually stood with him. Obviously, Pereira wasn't able to do his normal striking because he was so concerned about the takedown. We know that. Ankalaev is not a better striker than Pereira. Pereira was very worried about going to the mat and that he was kind of paralyzed by it, is the way that I had described it. So, fair play to Ankalaev. I think that that fight was close. I would line him as a favorite for the rematch, which is what I expect to happen. Pereira looked injured. I don't know if he was or not, but he looked injured. It looked like he couldn't throw. I know there was rumors going around that he might have hurt his wrist going into the fight or had a broken hand or something, but I don't know. Yeah, everybody always has excuses when they lose and whatever. So I thought Pereira looked old. I thought he looked really afraid of the takedown, which is to be expected against Ankalaev, who was a very good takedown specialist. But I would have liked to see Pereira just let his hands go. Like even in the fifth round, he landed that head kick, and Ankalaev immediately started retreating, was clearly hurt by it. And I was like, oh man, like that's like the 50th best head kick that Pereira's ever landed. And Ankalaev looked like he got hit by a baseball bat. So I would say I'd be interested to see what that line will be for the rematch. I kind of like Pereira, but Pereira said he wanted to take some time off, so I think that opens up opportunities for other people.
Yeah, kind of like what you're talking about before. There's a few different explanations for what happened on Saturday night in that main event. Prevailing one, like you said, is that takedown was scaring him, possible injury, and then another thing that we kind of saw with, say, Izzy Adesanya with like an inexplicable decision, seemingly, if you were to look at it before it had actually occurred. A lot of people pointed to him having crazy activity. Pereira, that's another thing that's definitely something to be considered. But I think we do have to give Magomed some props in terms of his striking. I think a lot of us were still impressed by what he was able to do. Pereira is not a guy that you can just, stand with. So you have to have some decent striking to not get knocked out by that guy. But one thing that we do have to address, the elephant in the room, Eric, you had a 47-47 draw scorecard that garnered a lot of attention. I would like to give you the platform to defend it if you would like to. Could you run us through your line of thinking with that?
Yeah. Yeah. So I posted it. The comments were some of them, a couple agreed. And some people like don't understand the math of it. Everyone's like, did you mean 48-48? It's like, no, I didn't give a 10-10 round to anybody. Like that, I've never even really seen a 10-10 round, to be honest. I mean, when's the last time we've seen a 10-10 round?
The only time that I can think of which was recent but didn't really count was Cejudo and Song. Technically, the fourth round was a 10-10, when they stopped it 1 second in. But
Yeah, but they didn't even judge it off of that. They judged it off of
yeah.
rounds. So, like, I don't even remember the last time I've seen one. So everyone that's like, you scored it a 10-10 round, dude, I don't even know what you're talking about. No. If you score a 10-8 for one fighter who only wins one other round, that's a 47-47. So I had Pereira, I had Pereira winning round one, round three, and round five. And then Ankalaev a little generous after a rewatch, a little generous, but I did think Ankalaev was or Ankalaev dominated round two. I think that Pereira was saved by the bell in round two. With one championship rules, it is a 10-8, by the way. And, you know, Ankalaev, I gave him a 10-8 round two. I think it was a little generous after a rewatch, but not that generous. I think that Ankalaev had I think there's an argument could be made of a 10-8. I for sure I would say it's a 10-9, but an argument can be made that it's a 10-8. And then I think he won round four. So if you go by that, it's 47-47. I'm the only one who had it that way. But I mean, everybody else had it 48-47 one way or the other. I believe Scott Fontana had it 48-47 for Pereira. Um,
Mhm.
it was, most of the judges scored it 48-47 on Ankalaev. So I don't think it's an egregious scorecard. There was Reddit threads. I've gotten a lot of texts and calls about it. Lots of stuff on Twitter. I mean, hey, I stand by it. 47-47, I think that fight was a draw.
Hey, judges have made crazier decisions.
Yeah,
So,
which is a worse scorecard, 47-47 or 49-46 on Ankalaev? Hit,
yeah,
hit my DMs if you think it's 49-46. Let me know.
fair enough. You're within the margin of error of professionally employed judges, so
49-46 on Ankalaev is a way worse scorecard than 47-47, and I don't even want to hear it.
fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so now that we've gotten that out of the way, um, the biggest question, which kind of has been answered, Dana White said in the post-fight press conference that the rematch is very likely between Pereira and Ankalaev. Erich, do you agree with that? Because we can talk about some of the other alternatives, but I'll just start off by asking if that's something that you agree with is the right move.
UFC doesn't want Ankalaev to be the champion for very long. I can tell you that right now. So when you look at it, what would you rather, right? It's a tough spot for the UFC because Pereira said he wants to take some time off. Well, if Pereira's taking time off, they need to get Ankalaev off of that belt quick, or make Ankalaev or build Ankalaev, right? Ankalaev is so not built right now at all. The UFC has kind of stunted his growth at every turn, right? And that's also partly a business decision on their end. They don't think that they can build him. So I think that they're going to turn around and feed Ankalaev to Yuri Prohaska and see how that goes. If Pereira wants to sit, then Ankalaev is going to get a title shot, another title fight this summer. I mean, I'd be shocked if he isn't fight by August.
Okay. And then kind of going, so that's what could happen for Ankalaev should Pereira need some time or, make another decision, which is kind of the discussion that I was alluding to earlier. Some of the other options that Pereira could have, the obvious one is going up to heavyweight. What that would look like, whether it's just going into fighting either Aspinall or John Jones, it would most likely be Aspinall in the case if John Jones is like, I'm just not doing the fight. What would intrigue you more, him going to fight Aspinall or say another heavyweight, but really Aspinall is the one that we would want to see there, or getting that rematch with Ankalaev? What do you think makes more sense?
I'm all set on the Aspinall fight. He needed to win this fight in order to fight Aspinall. That's a big problem now for Pereira is like what is next, right? Like he should probably just fight for the title again and see if he can get a win. But if he can't, heavyweight kind of closed up for him, I feel like that's no longer a fight. Like he walks at 229. Like that's not that big for heavyweight. That's pretty much the heavyweight limit. So he's gonna be undersized there. Aspinall's like a big 252.
Mhm.
Like Aspinall's not a small heavyweight. So I would line out Aspinall minus 600 against Pereira.
Yeah, Aspinall, kind of like you were talking about, but he's a super well-rounded fighter. Like if and we've seen him, bulldoze people into like from a takedown straight into submissions. So the fear of the takedown from Pereira, who knows what would happen there.
That
I
would be
think I'm starting to see, yeah, I think I'm starting to see your point in terms of why the Magomed fight makes the most sense.
That's what he should do. Unless he just wants to do some super fights, like fight Israel again. I think we'd all watch that.
Light heavyweight, I'm assuming.
Yeah, fight Izzy at light heavyweight just for funsies.
Yeah, because I don't think there's any chance. We saw how difficult his weight cut was 205. I don't think he's doing that at middleweight again.
Ship has sailed on 185.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I think we've gotten some clarity as far as the Pereira versus Ankalaev situation. Of course, our co-main event, which delivered on all fronts in terms of the fight that, we entered, fight night with. Obviously, of course, it wasn't the Dan Hooker fight. Gaethje Fiziev was the next best option. And I mean, personally, I think it lived up to its expectations. What about you, Eric?
Fun fight. Definitely a fun fight. I'm a little disappointed in Fiziev. Like I even called out, like you can go back in the video and I called out like Gaethje was spamming leg kick uppercut the whole first fight. And I was like, I'm interested to see what Fiziev has to counter that. And it was kind of just the answer was nothing. The counter was like, oh, I'm just gonna keep blasting body kicks, which were awesome, by the way. And I don't know how Gaethje even ate those, but I'm a little disappointed with Fiziev. I'm interested in like, I don't know, like I'm interested to see who his coach is because I was looking at it and I was like, Gaethje's just that uppercut is just there every time. Like he landed that uppercut so much in the first fight, pretty much from the second round on, he just spammed that uppercut and it kept landing, it kept hurting him bad. And then he obviously dropped him here in the second round of this fight. I thought that Fiziev looked kind of not great, and I thought that Gaethje looked way better than I thought he would. I think Gaethje knows that he's just better than Fiziev. He's just in there. I was like, I'm in there. I'm an underdog for the second time, and I know I got you. So, um, I don't know what's next for either fighter, to be honest. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough spot for either of them to kind of pull together.
Yeah, I mean, as far as what's next, we've seen Justin Gaethje or possibly Ali Abdelaziz. Not really. We don't know at this point. It could be either of them who's typing away on X, but calling for a title shot. Do you think that that makes any sort of sense at all?
No. No, no. Arman is way ahead of him. I know, again, this is the thing though. So the UFC is very concerned about their product, right? The UFC is very concerned that they want finishes. They want fun fights, highlight reel stuff. And Gaethje is a human highlight reel. So he has a good argument for it in the eyes of the UFC. But in terms of merit and he just doesn't, there's no reason that he should be fighting. For the belt again. Like he lost to Khabib, he lost to Islam. Like he's already lost that fight so many times. We know he can't grapple. We know that he's not at that level, right? He can
Yeah.
grapple, an all-American wrestler, but not what if he gets taken down, it's toast. Like Oliveira, Makhachev, Khabib, like when you're against elite guys like that, it's just not happening. I like to see him fight Arman. If you beat Arman, fine, fight for the title. If you can beat Arman, but beat Arman first.
Yeah.
That's that's what should be next for Gaethje.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we have learned, which you kind of alluded to in the past few years, is that the UFC has kind of ceased to operate as a pure meritocracy. Like Khalil Roundtree got that title shot, and I don't think anyone was really upset about it.
Was. I was. I thought that
Well, there we
was
go. Okay, we got you on the Lone Island now. But I guess one question would be: would you be surprised if Gaethje got the title shot?
yeah, he shouldn't get the title shot. So mad if they gave him the title shot.
Yeah.
Arman needs to fight for the title. That first fight, and maybe we should add this to rewatchables. That first fight, Arman and Islam on the prelims of a random on a random pay-per-view was one of the best fights I've ever watched. It is such a good fight. We'll talk about future fights to watch later, but that fight is amazing. They fought
Yeah.
for it, it's amazing, and the UFC's mad at him for pulling out. I get it. They don't operate in the business of pullouts, but come on.
I was so excited for their second fight, first pay-per-view of this year, 311, I believe. I really was so pumped for that. Like, cause I don't know, it's like I said, like I say the past few episodes, when a number one contender gets, their title shot, it's like even with like Ankalaev, like where he's a fighter where he kind of has this perception that he's not an interesting fighter. It's just the fact that it's the best fighting the best that makes it interesting.
I agree.
But kind of closing out this one to move away from, say, the title shot for Gaethje, what do you think would be a good fight for him? Which one do you think does make sense for potential opponents?
Arman. Fight Arman.
Fight Arman? Would you prefer that over, say, Dan Hooker like the original? But since Gaethje's got this win over Fiziev now, he shows that he's still in the books. Maybe that one could make sense.
I'm not going to be arguing for Gaethje to fight for if he wants to fight for the title. I'm not going to be arguing for Gaethje to fight for the title if he beats Dan Hooker. Sorry, I'm just not doing it.
That's a fair point.
He said he wants to fight for the title. Go beat Arman.
Yeah,
Simple as
he
that.
also only has a few like fights left in his career. I mean, damage wise. So I think
Well,
that does make
who
sense.
knows anymore with him?
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. Let's close out UFC 313. This is a segment of Eric's mind, so shout out to you for coming up with this winners and losers of this event. Let's go ahead and do two each for winners and losers. My two winners. Um, this is going to be very shocking. Magomed Ankalaev, of course, he's a winner. He really showed, kind of like I said before, he showed that his striking, while, if you put them in a straight up kickboxing match, maybe things would have gone differently, but he's no slouch striking with Pereira. People were saying, how could you stand up with him, even with the threat of that takedown? People were thinking that the only way that he would be able to win is to like smudge grapple the entire fight. He was able to stand with Pereira, albeit, there's some other factors that you could say was the reason for him doing well, but all respect to him and all props to him. Mauricio Rufy coming away with that crazy spinning wheel kick to the head of Bobby Green. Almost picture perfect. The only one that I could put above that is Edson Barboza's KO. I think that one just barely inches it out, but like seriously, one of the all-time head kick KOs. Eric, what do you got?
Top five head kick KO of all time. I had even higher than Bahamundez's. I really thought that like that was incredible. Uh,
Hmm.
for my winners, I got we talked about him already. Yuri Prohaska. Yuri Prohaska is going to fight for the title. I think that if Pereira is taking time off, they're going to rush Yuri to fight for the title, and I kind of like that fight for him. I don't like Yuri Prohaska has already showed that like Glover Teixeira like you can't just like spam grapple him for that long. Like Yuri Prohaska like submitted Glover in the fifth round of the like title fight in the past. So, I kind of like that fight for Yuri Prohaska. I think that Prohaska could end up being the champion by the end of the year. I don't know what the odds.
Whoa.
I don't want to get crazy here, but look at those odds because Yuri. I don't know what those odds are on BetMGM, but Yuri's gonna fight for the title, and you know what? He just might win it, and he can't beat Pereira. We know that. Like Pereira's got him. So a good winner. Yuri Prohaska gets to avoid Alex. Going to fight for the title. I'm positive. Another winner, Josh Van, future champ. I bet against him. Feel stupid. Josh Van is so strong for that weight class, and his takedown defense was so good. He looked like a full weight class bigger than Rai Tazakura. I forget how to pronounce the name. I knew last week, but yeah, Josh Van, man, I think that he is awesome. I think he is so freaking good. So yeah, those are my winners. I can jump into some losers if we want, but
Yeah.
yeah, let's jump into some losers. I mean, no surprise here, ESPN.
Hmm.
ESPN's a loser, man. They're gonna lose the UFC contract. They're taking a hit in the PR department. Yeah, ESPN's gonna lose the UFC, and they just quit baseball. So now it's very confusing of where ESPN goes from here, right? They just got rid of ESPN baseball. They're about to lose UFC. That I'm pretty sure they lost the PFL too. Like this is I don't know. It seems like they're changing a little bit. And another loser is like John Jones. Like John's not gonna fight Pereira now. And I think that if Pereira won, I think that he was gonna fight John Jones. And kind of looking ahead, the UFC's like, oh, we're John Jones gonna fight Aspinall, gonna fight Aspinall. I don't believe you. I don't think that fight's gonna happen. I think that John Jones is going to. I think John Jones is going to retire. I don't. There's no reason for him to fight Aspinall, and I think Pereira would have been more fun. So if Pereira had won, John Jones versus Pereira at an international fight would have been fun, but not happening now.
I sincerely hope you're wrong, and I know you do too. I know you do too. But
I hope so.
yeah, as far as my two losers, Rafael Fiziev, of course. I mean, two super close fights. I know you said that Fiziev arguably won the first fight, and even with this one, I think it would have been out of this world to if he had come away with that decision. We've seen much worse ones in the past. So
Here's the adjustments. He needs
yeah.
none.
Yeah, I mean, for taking this fight on short notice, hopefully the UFC gets him back for it, which it seems like they do, and they take care of people that do them favors. So, and then my second is Amanda Lemos and Yasmin Lucindo for putting on I don't know if you could call it a fight, but it was pretty rough to watch. I'd argue that the real losers of that one were the fans watching. So
If you were even watching, if you were
if
able.
you were watching it, yeah. I mean, some people, I don't know how it ended up on the pay-per-view slot, but some people might not have been able to watch it due to, the ESPN thing that we've been talking about.
Yep.
Alrighty, so that kind of closes up last weekend. Let's look ahead to this weekend. We got Roman Dolidze taking on Marvin Vettori back at the warehouse. Starts at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Main card starts at 7 p.m. Really quick before we go into some of our fights to watch, because it is the main event, Dolidze and Vettori. Eric, I'm just curious, what are your thoughts about does this have any implications for the middleweight division in terms of the title picture? Or is it kind of just one of those fights?
Not even close. None of these fights have anything to do with anything, actually. I think the co-main event's interesting, but I mean, Marvin Vettori and Dolidze have already fought, and I don't see this fight going any differently. Spoiler alert. They fought. This is like he fought. Vettori's fought one other guy before he's fought Dolidze. So I don't even understand the matchmaking here. It just seemed like I don't know. Who do you want to fight?
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. Um, we'll get into your picks a little bit later. But in terms of fights to watch, since Scott is not here, again, wishing him all the best in terms of his recovery. He will be back soon. Um, his fight that he let us know is Damon Blackshear versus Cody Gibson. Blackshear, of course, is one of the few people in UFC history to come away with a twister submission. Cody Gibson was a tough finalist. The two of them actually fought in the same Boston card where Sean O'Malley won the title off of Aljamain Sterling. Cody didn't come away with the win in the tough final, but of course he made his way to the UFC after that. So should be an interesting fight. Hopefully we get some action. If we get another twister, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, those are someone tried to twist for me yesterday in jiu-jitsu. My neck still hurts, but yeah, my fight to watch is I mean, and look, it's the co-main event. I think that's the most interesting fight. Chidi and Njokuani versus Zaleski dos Santos. I think that fight's gonna be super interesting. I like that that's pretty much a striker v striker matchup, but hopefully Zaleski doesn't just decide to go to his grappling. Kind of want to see them stand and trade a little bit. I'm sure the UFC wants them to see them stand and trade a little bit. And Njokuani's got a ton of potential. Good friend of Israel Adesanya, very similar styles, and yeah, I'm very excited for that fight. I think that co-main event is probably the best fight on the card.
Alrighty, cool. There we go. Some high praise. So wrapping up this card before we wrap it up completely with your 3 bets in 3 minutes. Let's go to Scott's event rating. This one did not come in very high. It got a 16 out of 100 in terms of so it is in the 16th percentile, and not in a good way. For how compared to other UFC cards. Scott did note that Span versus Cortez Acosta being on the main card would have definitely helped it out. He mentioned that that should have been on the main card, considering Ryan Span's headline cards before. So maybe the number is a little bit skewed based off of just all of the fights, but you know what? If the UFC is going to make a decision to not put that on the main card when they should, maybe the rating should go down. Alrighty, Eric, with that all wrapped up, I'm going to hand the baton off to you. 3 bets, 3 minutes. What do you got for us?
3 bets in 3 minutes here. Erich Richter here. UFC Apex or Warehouse. Let's get 3 bets in here. I'm gonna start with the co-main event. I just talked about it. I think that Chidi Njokuani, he's 6'3", Zaleski's 5'11". I think that if Zaleski wants to grapple, I think that he might have that opportunity to do so. But for me, I think that Njokuani's got way better striking, he's got way longer reach. I think that this is a spot for him where he can kind of piece him up on the feet. He's got really, really powerful strikes. Also, like an underrated part of his game, or perhaps properly rated, I guess, depending on how much you watch him fight, but his clinch work is nasty. Njoku can really piece you up in the clinch. He's got sharp elbows, like cutting elbows, and he's got knees that will make you cry. Like I love Njoku. So I'm gonna go Njoku money line there. And then look, it's the main event. It's not the most fun main event. Marvin Vettori's only fought once in the past 2 years. He fights Roman Dolidze for the second time. These two guys know each other. Every time that I see a rematch, I'm always looking to bet that fight to go to the decision. But Roman Dolidze is not a chain grappler. He's not a guy with wrestling cardio per se. I'm going to take Vettori here by decision. It's going to be a 5 round, 25-minute jab fest from Vettori is my expectation. Super duper long shot here. And after a really good week last week, I feel like I've earned a super duper long shot. First one since our first podcast. AJ Cunningham's a huge underdog to Su Young. AJ Cunningham is by decision is 14-1. Now Young is a very good grappler and he's definitely looking for a submission here, but I don't know if Cunningham is that guy to be get submitted here really early. So from my perspective, I think that Cunningham is a little bit tougher, and if he can fight through that the grappling side of it and grind through, I think he's a little bit stronger on the feet. So I'm gonna have Cunningham by decision at 14-1. That is my super long shot play of the week. Last week went 3 for 3, so I've earned it. Let me take it. So that's your three bets in 3 minutes. Let's get into quick hits. Jake, you want to hit quick hits?
Yeah, let's do it. Well, first off, thank you for that. Some good fights for UFC Des Moines in Iowa. They haven't been to Iowa since the year 2000, so it's been quite a bit of time. But Davison Figueiredo is going to be taking on Sandhagen for the headliner. Also announced for the card, Bo Nickel is going to be taking on former one championship two division Renier de Ritter. And then kind of out of the blue, Jeremy Stevens is back in the UFC. Also on that Des Moines card, he is a native Iowan, I believe is how you would say it. Paul Hughes versus Bruno Miranda was announced for May 10th in Belfast. Unfortunately, not getting that Usman Nurmagomedov rematch that fans had kind of been hoping for. And then sticking with some PFL news, the matchups and dates and locations were released for the PFL World Tournament. Just curious, Eric, any one of those stick out to you?
Yeah, I mean Davison Figueiredo, Corey Sandhagen, sick fight. And I also kind of like that they're going to Iowa. Stop going to the warehouse. Stop it. Go to Iowa. I'm not even kidding. Even if you don't sell out the arena, just go. Just go do it.
I was getting a crazy card, honestly. Like if for a fight night, yeah,
For a fight night, dude, this is better than any Atlantic City card that we've had.
yeah. Come on, this might have to go to Iowa. We'll see.
I'm all set.
Alrighty.
But yeah, you had some homework this past week, Jake. Give me your thoughts. You watched Frank Mir versus Brock Lesnar one.
Yes. So this fight is a roller coaster, very different from the Frankie Edgar Gray Maynard assignment. The second fight that I'd previously watched. That one was a full 5 round fight. This one was it ends in the first round. It's a very short roller coaster, but it's kind of crazy. Frank Mir was getting absolutely bum rushed and battered by Brock Lesnar, and you see him kind of go into his guard a little bit. Lesnar, of course, going to Frank Mir's guard, and you start hearing the commentary booth being like, "Hey, listen, Frank Mir's guard is pretty dangerous." And as a viewer, I was like, I don't know, man. It looks like Frank's finished. Boom, out of nowhere, knee bar, Brock Lesnar taps. Crazy. Like it's just another one of those fights like where like I mentioned the Gray Maynard fight, you see someone, you're like, how the hell are they gonna get out of this one? And then they do. So
Yeah.
would highly recommend it. It does not take much time at all. But
No.
if you're wondering how Brock Lesnar's first title shot went, definitely take a look at this one.
Very interesting fight. It was a very interesting fight. Yeah, Brock made a tactical error and paid the price, and we're gonna have to go to the second fight, the rematch after this.
Yes.
But that is not the fight recommendation of the week. Your homework for the week is now to watch Chuck Liddell versus Vanderlei Silva as the UFC 79 main event. Fireworks. You guys are gonna love
The
that.
Iceman versus the Axe Murderer. Two of some of the best names
Wanna know?
in
Wanna
UFC
know?
history.
Wanna know?
Wanna know, wanna know. Vanderlei, stop. I love it. Alrighty. And then also this week in MMA, I believe this happened on March 14th. So tomorrow will be the anniversary of it. Hall of Famer Joanna Jędrzejczyk came into her UFC championship reign, taking down at the time, recently crowned strawweight champ Carla Esparza for a 2.5 year reign. Joanna Jędrzejczyk, one of the best strawweights of all time. And I mean, the fact, the body of work that we've been talking about Zhang Wei Li over her last title defense, talking about her now just kind of becoming like the official best strawweight of all time. If you think about the body of work she put in to surpass Joanna Jędrzejczyk, I think that says a lot about Joanna's body of work that she has to be proud of over her strawweight reign. Legend of the game. Alrighty.
Her title reign's very interesting. We can get into that at a later date, but her title reign's very interesting.
It is. It is. Alrighty. Well, we'll leave that for another episode. But for now, Eric, I think we are all set. How about you?
Boys, let's make some money this week. Let's make some money this week. Three
Come
for
on.
we're crushing, man. UFC picks are red hot right now. I'm excited. Let's make some money. I mean, 13 fight card, lots of decisions to be had there.
Yes. Alrighty. Let's keep it rolling. Eric, good to see you again as always. You guys go do your homework, make some bets, watch the fights, enjoy them
Yep.
in the warehouse. Alrighty. See you next week.
Later.